Merry Christmas. Let's begin. Now, before we get proper started, I have terms and I have conditions. If you want me to do this little Christmas calendar, there's a couple of things I would appreciate that you do. One is like the video, 2 is share this, and 3 is comment below, because that is great motivation for me to make more chapters every day of this Elder Futhark Christmas calendar. If you're not already familiar with the runes, I recommend that you buy my book, or that you at least Google a little bit. There are 24 runes, and each of them has a deeper meaning. So let's begin. Outside the hall, it is cold and frost-bitten. The soil is hard and in some place very slippery, as it has thawed and refrozen several times already. Snow lies across the courtyard of the elder man's land, and inside the long hall is a feast, a joyfulness of the first day of the coming midwinter feasts and the Yule tide. An old man, a servant of old, has been sent across the yard to the stables to fetch a bucket of apples that needs to be added to the roast, and a bucket of water that is needed to quench the thirst. Well, I'm sure the thirst is quenched with other things, but at least some need the water. There are children, young ones, who are not yet allowed to partake heavily in beer and mead. As he crosses the yard, he is mindful and wary of the cold. His old joints ache and creak, and he is glad that he has earned some freedom in his old age from this servitude that he grew up with. As he walks, he notices the clouds above him part, and he looks up to see the moon high in the sky, and for a moment the clouds form strangely as if it is a giant wolf about to swallow the moon itself. The old man is distracted and slips and falls to the ground with a hard, cracking sound. He feels the sharp pain pierce through his hip, and he knows that something is wrong. And he tries to get up, but he cannot. He is old, and he is now in pain and suffering on the ice, in the cold, that all of a sudden is more apparent than ever before in his life. He has grown up in wintry lands. He has washed his clothes in frozen streams many times, and he knows the bite of frost and winter. But now, all of a sudden, this is different. This is almost a magical cold. An ice that chills him to the bone, because he knows that if he does not do what is the right thing to do, he will end his days here, in a courtyard, in front of a feast, on a frozen night, close to Yuletide and Christmas time. He tries to call for help, but inside, the feast is loud, and no one hears his feeble old voice, which is already cracking and crumbling with the cold, as if the winter is fighting against him, as if the ice has already decided to take him. He tries to lift himself on his arms, but his old joints are achy, painful. He tries to gain leverage by turning and twisting so that he may find an easier purchase, but everywhere around him is slippery. Very, very slippery and very, very cold. And he realizes that if only he had fallen on the way back from the stables, someone would be thinking by now, where is old Aigil? Where has he gone? It cannot take that long to collect apples and water. He should have been back by now. I'd better go look for him. But no. In his mind, by now he should have reached the stables, old as he is, and be picking the nicest apples from the piles to make sure that they were unbruised and unblemished when served to the alderman's guests. He should be pouring water into the other bucket. He should not be here, freezing to the bones, aching in every bit and feeling his flesh go blue and pallid. It will be a while yet before someone is missing old Aigil, he realized. And in this moment, he starts to grieve for himself. The ice, the frost, the winter will claim him. He knows this now. It has already decided this. This magical cold, clear, like snowflakes falling from the sky, white, barren and stark. This will take him. This has decided it will take him. And so he relinquishes himself to it, as in the rite of the winter wolf. The old one knows his time has come, and he will be taken from this world by the frost, by Isar, the rune of ice, the magic of true wintry cold. That was the first chapter of this Elder Futhark telling. Now I have promised my team at work that I will do a little kind plug-in and remind you to go to northernblack.shop and shop a little bit, buy yourself something nice, perhaps the book about runes that I've made. Now you should stay tuned. Tomorrow there will be another episode, and well, we shall see where it takes us. Welcome to this second episode of my odd Elder Futhark Christmas calendar. Let's start with the rules. You will need to like this video. You will preferably need to comment below, and if you're very kind, share it. This feeds our algorithms and all these things, and it makes it worth my while. Now, yesterday I did Isar, which looked like this, in case you were in doubt, because I have been asked to show. And today we shall do Fehu. Imagine a cow, a mighty bovine beast, different than what we have today. It stands in a field, and the field is by a farm. It's a low-built thing, almost shaped like a hogback, this farm, and it is owned by a farmer who owns much land and much cattle and has children. His children, Arn and Mara, have a cow, and the cow is the one we just mentioned. Her name is Flower. Flower is a wonderful creature, and the children have seen her be born and grow up to the size that she is. She is gentle, she is caring, and the children have both slept up against her in the cold wintry nights to keep warm, even though their mother says they should not, because the cow might crush them. Both children know this will never happen. The cow to the farmer is nothing but value, and therefore, as well with the other cows, other cattle, he has called a drover, a tradesman, to buy his cattle, or some of it, to drive it to market and sell it there. The children do not know this, and they've been asked to show off the cattle to the drover. The boy, who's past his 10th year, is proud to do so, and the little girl, Mara, is really excited to show off her cow, her favourite cow, Flower. The drover, a big man, dark beard, with the middle part missing, is a giant, and he is burly, but the children like him. He laughs loud, and they guide him down to the fields where the cows are. Arndt shows off all the heads of cattle, and he knows by heart how many there are, and their sizes, and their colours, and so on. That is his job. He is, after all, a farmer's son. But he also gives special attention to Flower, his cow, making sure that the drover sees how beautiful and special she is. And the drover pays attention. She is a special cow. She comes running over when the children call, and they feed the cow a crabapple. And the cow is clearly very affectionate of the two. She is also a beautiful specimen. After having inspected the cattle, the drover walks off, and the children stay for a little bit, petting their cow and feeding her another apple. The drover has walked back to the farm to haggle with the farmer, the father. And they haggle back and forth until they come to a price. Silver is paid, including some hack silver, and the drover leaves. In the meantime, the children has run off into the woods on a little adventure to forest a few things, but also just to play amongst the flowery fields. From the hills, they see the drover moving away from the farm with a lot of cattle, and they realize what they might have done. So they run. They run as fast as they can, but halfway there they stop. The girl, Mara, insists that they should run back to the farm to talk to father and convince him to help get their cow back. But Arndt argues that that's not how it works. They can't just get father's help every time there's trouble. So they run on, down to the drover and his other drivers who are herding the cattle along. The drover likes the children, so he stops and asks them what is up. They look panicky, and he thinks maybe something has happened. He quickly gathers that this is nothing. They're just worried about their cow, and while he's talking to the boy, the girl has already located Flower amongst the herd, and she shouts back to her brother, "She's here, she's here." Arndt is already arguing to get the cow back, even pleading, and the drover is telling him that this is not how it's gonna be. The cow now belongs to him, he is paid for it. Arndt is nearly in tears at the thought of losing his friend, and then he remembers how this works. So he takes the bracelet that is around his upper arm, which he sees as a ring, a silver ring. It has been given to him in good faith because he did good deeds for his father, scouting out on a different occasion. We shall come to that story another time. And he has been given a silver arm ring. He rips it off his arm and gives it to the drover and says, that will be payment for my cow. I would like her back. The drover looks at the silver and weighs it in his hand and takes a corner of it at the end and bends it off and wears the metal thin and breaks it and gives it to the boy and says, "Fine, that is a fair price. You keep that bit there. You'll need it to pay for food for your cow and for lodgings with your father, since it is no longer his cow and therefore not his problem. You have now made yourself more of a man. You now own cattle, don't you, lad?" And then he turns and walks away. One of the other drovers has separated Flower from the herd and handed her over to Mara. She stands there, the side of the road, docile, eating grass, and the boy now looks confused at his strange fortune, his silver spiral bit in his hand and his cow, and wonders what to do next. That is a simple story of how I perceive Fehu. See, Fehu is wealth and value, but it is much more, especially portable value, but it is much more than that. There's an intricate power to this strange inheritance that it can be a gift from a stranger, can mean nothing to you, but it can mean everything to the stranger. The cattle or the person sold can mean nothing to the buyer and everything to the seller, or the other way around. Value is, in this world, what it factually is, but also what is ascribed to it. And I wanted to illustrate that for some people, the life of animals is worth more than it is to others. So, that is this part of the calendar. We shall proceed tomorrow. Don't forget, comment below and all that, and don't forget to jump over to northernblack.shop and get yourself a little something. It is Christmas after all, or get a Christmas gift for someone else. I can highly recommend a book about runes, sigils and bind runes if you want to learn a little bit more. It is full of goodies, and yeah, that's about it. Thank you for your attention. Good evening, boys and girls. Right, December 3rd, and today we shall explore Algis. Protection, defense. First, the rules. Remember to like the video, remember to share it, remember to comment. Why all this nonsense? Well, because I'm investing a lot of time into coming up with this. And if I am to invest this time and entertain you all, I'd like to be rewarded. And by reward, I mean help us boost our presence here on the internet, because it all pays back to us, and that makes me happy. To the story. Folke is a hunter. He has been so since as far back as he remembers, since his father and his uncles taught him to hunt. He is the father of 5 and has a sick and unfortunately frail wife that waits at home. He is out in the snow, stalking, trying to hunt a young elk that he believes will be feeding his family for a good while. The winter has already become quite harsh for him and his family, and they lack food. Their storage was raided not too long ago by what might have been animals, but possibly just robbers, bandits. He is unsure, even though he's good at tracking. He has a feeling that he has made an enemy or two, but that is for another time. Out here in the snow, he is in his mastered elements. He can move quietly, sense the wind, and taste in the air which way to go. An almost supernatural power tells him how, where, what to stalk, when, and he is good at it. Folke is a very good hunter, and he has found his prey long ago, and is simply following its steps to make sure that he will be on the right side at the right time, so that the wind does not give him away. He knows that there is more than one elk. The young one is part of a flock, and he has a feeling that the mother is somewhere nearby, and a couple of siblings in the same flock. But he knows which one he hunts, because it has a halting gait It is as if it has been wounded before, and he knows it will be an easier kill. He stops and listens, moves, crouches down and crawls through the snow between the branches of the great big pine trees towards a clearing that he knows quite well. He knows that the elks come here because there is usually fresh water to drink from a stream that runs fast enough to break the ice, and there is often some grasses sticking out through the snow still available to eat for them. And he is right. Before him stands his prey, not far away, and he gently and slowly moves an arrow from his quiver and onto his bow. He rubs the bow, warming the wood, making sure that it is not too cold, because too much cold will harm it when he shoots, and it will creak when he pulls back the string, and that might give him away. He waits, hiding his breath by putting snow in his mouth to cool it. And there it is, the perfect shot. The other elk walks away, leaving an opening. Just perfect, shot from the side, an arrow straight to the heart. He pulls back, and then he hears a sound. And he does not like this sound. He turns his head slightly, and not far from him he can see the strong and sturdy legs of a much bigger elk. He looks up and has a feeling that he is looking at the grandfather of all elks, a spirit protector perhaps of them, a fylgja. It is pale, not white, but dusty grey, almost silvery, and it is looking straight at him. At first his instinct tells him perhaps this should be the elk that he shoots, and then he thinks again and realizes that trying to kill this beast would be the end of him. Even being here in the forest right now would be the end of him. They lock eyes, and the elk simply walks in front of his shot, blocking him from the younger elk, and stands there. It stands defiant too, side to him, clean shot. Should he wish, he could possibly kill this giant beast and bring it home, dragging it through the snow. It is tempting, and he does not know what it is that's holding his hand. He even pulls back the string a little bit, and the giant elk lifts its head as if ready to take the shot to its heart. But then it cocks its ear, moves its head slightly, steps forward a little bit, stomping a little bit, stops again. Folke is nervous. He knows that he has messed up. He had a chance. He should have taken it. He had a chance with the first elk. He should have taken that one. And now he is here with the risk of being trampled to death by this giant beast or impaled on its antlers. He readies himself to back away slowly, but the elk approaches again, stomping and waving its ears, and he realizes that perhaps this fylgja is not just for the other elk, but for him as well. So he listens. He lets his heart calm down and listens. And somewhere far away, he can hear it, whispering voices and metal gliding against metal, like a sayax drawn across a chainmail. He realizes now that his family is in grave danger, that the animal that robbed his food stores was no animal at all, but greedy men, robbers, coming to take more than just food now that he is away from their homestead in the forest. They live too far away from the village for an alarm to be raised, for practical reasons, but also, in this case, highly impractical. Fear grips him. He stands, and the elk still stands defiant, staring at him. He nods, turns, knowing full well that this might mean death, and he runs. Runs for his life, for his children's life, and for the life of his wife, to make it back to protect what is his, to make it back to protect his home and his family. Behind him he hears the stomping, massive hoofs of the elk not far behind and slightly to the side of him. And he knows that when the battle closes, he will not be alone. The gods are with him, older gods. Fuck Thor and Odin. This is a god of the earth, and this will help protect those who he needs to protect the most. Northern Black Dot shop, Christmas shopping, all those things. Buy our rune book, buy some art books. Yuletide, and good night. Raido. Tonight's rune is Raido. Harold was already on his 7th day of journeying. He was riding his horse and was holding the reins of another horse in his hand. He had saddlebags packed with food. He had his sword and his shield strapped behind him. And he was efficiently moving across the landscape. He had crossed some of the hardest parts already and ridden along the fjords and made sure to avoid the more dangerous passes, even though some of those passes would have made his journey so much faster. Traveling in this land was not an easy feat, and he knew that the messenger that had brought him news of home, as we will call it, had travelled at a tremendous speed with much need to be efficient, and he respected the man for it and had paid him well in silver for his deeds. Now Harold was a few days' journey still from home, but he knew that he would make it on good time, weather permit. And for something like this, it was the will of the gods, in fact, that the weather would be nice. This journey was not meant to be an easy undertaking, but it was meant to be a journey that was completed and successful. He knew this. He had been taught this. This was the way of things. So it should be. As he rode, he thought back on his life and on many, many years that he felt he had spent in his homestead by the sea, under the watchful gaze of his uncle, the Earl there, who had trained him, taught him, paid good men to teach him wondrous things before he had been sent off across hills and mountains to serve as an elderman in a village that was sort of under the control of his uncle, but sort of not. It was a political thing. And they had established travel routes, trade routes, and, of course, communication routes, very important. Now he was heading home because important things had happened. Important needs had arisen. So he had done as he must. The sun had almost already set, and he knew that to travel in the night was pure folly. So he stopped and found a way away from the trails themselves and made camp. No fire, no reason to get others out of their bed to go find him, simply because there were an opportune moment to take his belongings if you were of the robbering kind. Thus passed the next couple of days. He contemplated and travelled as fast as he could, shifted horse every once in a while, and made sure to make his way fast and efficient, to travel safe and journey well. Every once in a while he would make sure to leave a gift for the gods at appropriate places. Small things, a string of silk hung from a branch, a stack of rocks put upon a great big boulder. Small things, but all significant to him. Nothing that would waste his time. He would do it when his horses were being watered anyways. But he did them. Now, finally, he could see where he was going. Far below him, in the valley, he could see the great longhouses and the much smaller houses, and he could see smoke rising from numerous fireplaces, including a greater fire from the smithy. He could see what was home, what has once been his entire universe. And he let his horses set a little bit of a faster pace to end this journey in a good manner. Before he reached his final, shall we say, destination, he stopped and left an offering for the wolves. Even though he had not seen any, he knew that he might have been tracked by these beasts or others, and therefore, to placate the spirits of them at least, he left an offering of good meats for them, as a thank you that they had not assaulted him on his journey. Harold had good manners, both to the supernatural and to the living. He dismounted his horse before entering the village and walked in, and already at the edge of the village he was met with hails and greetings from people that he knew. He received hugs and pats on the shoulder. Cheerfulness all around him. Everyone was happy to see the young man, to wish him welcome back and ask how his journey had been. The day went by. Food was had, bread was broken, salt was shared, and mead and beer was drunk. Everyone enjoyed an evening of festivities and happiness. And Harold told much of how life had been since he left, of how life was with his new wife, how life was on this new path, this new journey that he had undertaken as a real man to serve his uncle in such a different way. And that was, after all, why he was here. He went to sleep that night in the longhouse and had wondrous dreams of the journey that he had just undertaken, of travelling under the northern lights, of the gods wishing him good speed to do so. And in the morning, as he rose, he partook in the rituals, along with his family and friends. It was a long day, arduous rituals, many doings, many deeds, the Gauthies casting bones, singing songs, chanting, fires being lit, and sacrifices being made, and a great big boat being painted, all in the richest blue color, prepared for the dusk. And as dusk came, by then everyone were exhausted yet exalted and drunk on beer, on fine wines, on mead, and somewhat intoxicated on small amounts of henbane and mushrooms. The final sacrifices were made, and he saw his beautiful aunt stand next to the mighty boat and sing a loud, dirge-like song, calling upon the gods to care well for her husband, the boy Harold's uncle, the Earl, once the ruler of this land, now dead from a bane wound that had taken him. This was his final journey, the Raido into the everlasting life at the side of the gods. He had died fighting. After all, he belonged with Odin or with Freya. And thus, the ship was pushed to sea, and flaming arrows were shot from the great bows and lit the ship ablaze, so it and its many inhabitants, all dead, could travel in fiery greatness into the fjord out to sea, where the waves would one day consume the burning boat when it was ready to be consumed, and the Earl would enter Valhalla. Because there he lay on a great funeral pyre on top of the ship, clasping his sword, stoic even in death. And Harold thought of his own journey one day to come to the side of the gods. That was it for today. And if you want to learn more about runes and bind runes, you can go and buy my book on the subject, just to plug that in there. That is it. Good night. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, terms and conditions. Don't forget, like the video, share it if you are so kind, and comment in the comment section, simply because it all helps pay back for the time that I have invested in this madness that my little Elder Futhark Christmas calendar is. Now, let's get down to business. Today's rune is Dagaz. Now, she had crawled and climbed for most of the night. Since dusk had fallen, she had started her ascent, and on the way up she had to pause many times in the wind, in the hail, snowy, sludgy weather that was hammering her as she was climbing this ragged, steep, shitty edge, all to get to her goal. It had been a hard climb. She knew that she had spent many hours on the move, and probably as many hours huddled up against the wind in crags and crannies, trying to stay safe on this God's forsaken piece of stone that she was trying to get up. When she had paused and not had to use her hands to hold on with, she had spent her time wisely sharpening her blade and ensuring that it would be at its optimal. Hard work to do in the bloody darkness, but at least the sound of the wind obscured the wet, slithering sound of the blade being honed to perfection. It was a good seax, short, sturdy, rested well in her hand as she had polished down the handle to fit perfectly, and she had entrusted her fate to that blade many times before, in both combat and in stealthier situations. She had reached a point where despair seemed to have taken her. She by now believed that she might have tried to take on a task beyond her. Climbing a very, very steep, sharp, rigid edge to get up there, to murder someone in the dead of night. It seemed unlikely to succeed right now, as she was bone cold and tired, and she could no longer see. She had started her ascent with some moonlight to help her out, but the moon had been obscured by the clouds and the storm that had battered her through the night. She had never been one very good at reading weather patterns. Sadly, growing up as a sailor or a farmer was not her lot. She had grown up in very different ways and with very different needs than being able to tell the weather when you stepped outside, and had never gained that innate ability that she knew so many others possessed. So she had been fooled and had set off on this journey without knowing what lay before her. So she sat here, huddled, waiting, hoping that the winds would abate and that she would gain proper foothold and handholds to continue. But as it was right now, she could find no way up and no way down. She also knew that once she made it up, she had no idea how to complete the task ahead. So despair had taken her. She had shaken and froze. She was lethargic by now, hardly caring for the success and the results that she had set out with. And then a sliver of light far out on the horizon showed up. It was a red, almost blemish-like colour on the dark lead-grey stormy sky. But she saw it, and it kindled her with a little bit of hope. At first she actually thought that it was a massive fire, but it turned out very quickly to be nothing else but the wonderful sun. The sun, drawn on a chariot across the sky according to stories, chased by a giant wolf. The sun, with its warmth and its light and its brilliance to illuminate her way. And as she thought these thoughts, and as the idea warmed her, she looked about her and saw that everything started to be bathed in a soft, orangey reddish light, and that all of a sudden it became apparent that she had looked for purchase the wrong places. She did not need to go sideways where it looked like there were outcroppings. She needed to go straight up. And furthermore, when looking straight up and the light becoming clearer, as dawn was creeping further along, she could see that almost right above her was the ledge itself. She was so much closer to her target than she had thought. And instead of despairing thoughts of having to throw herself off the cliff and into the sea to get out of this situation, she now knew that all she had to do was sheathe her blade and crawl, just tense her muscles after gaining a bit of warmth, and just get up there. And it would still, in principle, be nighttime, because her enemy would have been drinking, would be probably in his stupor, tired at the best, and throwing up, sick from drunkenness from his victory at worst. And so she set out, she started up, and easily found handholds now that the sun was shining, because the sun hit just right. She could see the glistening, weird, almost diamond-like glimmer in the stone, and it made her path so much easier. And as she crawled, her plan formed again in her head, crystal clear, like the dawning sun, like bright as day, what she had to do. And as she thought these thoughts, she could feel suddenly grass in her grasp, the top of the ledge, and she pulled herself up. As she did so, the sun fully burst through the cloud cover behind her, cresting beautifully, illuminating her in a dark silhouette, but also casting such a fierce light onto the world that any man or woman watching would have been blinded by its brilliance, blinded by the golden light hammering through the cloud cover of the dark and stormy night. Self-assured and with a great plan in mind, she strode forward where she could see the many, many tents of her enemy, and she easily, in the light, saw his tent with the painted dragons on it, and she simply used her seax to slice open the backside of it and step inside and finish the deed that she set out to do. That was the story for today. A simple tale, really. Some of these runes are harder to convey in message than others. But this story and this rune, well, it does bring light, doesn't it? Now, off you go. Hopefully, you will either have a wonderful day or a wonderful night's sleep. I bid you one of the either, and may you fuck off and enjoy yourself. Don't forget, tune in tomorrow for more Runic tales. Tonight's offering is Uruz. The giant sat crouching there on one knee, still as a statue. It was as if he was part of the rock upon which part of this battle took place. He seemed to be waiting with the patience reserved for trees and seasons, perhaps even mountains and hills, for being unmoving in the midst of a battle seemed an unlikeliness. And then, all at once, he exploded into movement and motion, rising to his giant stature, shaking himself like a shaggy bear, releasing his giant cloak of felted wool with the skin and hide of a bear on the shoulders, and let it fall from his shoulders, full of arrows as it was, like a bedraggled porcupine. And then he stood there, still for a moment, gazing at his enemies before he set into a run, step by step, heavy and solid, sinking into the mud, or easily, perfectly landing on hard stone, moving gracefully across all the terrain that there was, swiftly towards the enemy lines. The night before this, Jera had set up his own little camp away from all the others. He had built his little fire and built a frame of sticks over it, and had covered it with this massive cloak and a blanket. And then he had wandered around, finding the right herbs that he needed to mix with the things he had with him. And once it had all been mixed perfectly in his little silver bowl, mixed with warm water, he crawled inside of his little makeshift tent that was warm, warm as the womb of the earth itself. He drank the tea, buried his fingers in the soil, and sat on the cold ground, feeling one with it, letting himself draw upon the strengthened will of the earth itself. He thought of the roots of trees and the roots of mountains. He thought of the sharpest edge of any mountain he had ever climbed. And then he thought of the softest soil and most tender moss that he had ever tread upon in the deepest forest valleys. This was his mantra, this was his world, and he thought of these things as his mind started to drift from his body. His head started to slump, and before long he crashed sidelong like a giant tree and lay there, eyes open, staring at the fire, tears dripping out of the corner of his eye from the smoke in his tent. And then he passed from consciousness. When he awoke, it was to the sound of the preparations of war around him, swords being hammered against shields, chants, men being ordered around. Readiness. War was upon them. He knew it. He could taste it in the air, and he felt ready, even though he had just woken up. He rolled out of his tent, ripped off the cloak from the frame, gathered about him his belongings, and put everything in the right place, buckled the belt around his armor, donned his helmet, put on the cloak, strapped it in with the great big fibula, and then he marched towards the lines that he could see congregating before him not that far away. He was ready for war, like he had been born ready for war. He had seen other fighters fight with the berserker lust, like they were wolves or bears, and he was not that kind. He fought with the strength of tree trunks clashing against each other, and before long he would prove it. As he had risen in perfect motion from his kneeling position, he had gazed about himself and seen that he was nearly alone. Around him lay scores of dead or wounded, screaming and moaning, enemies that had been foolish enough to come near his long-hafted axe. And he knew that this fight would have to be done without the support of long spears and shield walls, which suited him fine. He walked forward, and with every stride found his strength. He started swinging against any man that dared approach him, and with each swing he felled one, even if a shield was raised against him. His strength was such that nothing would stop the biting head of his axe, and if anyone lunged at him, his shield would easily stop them. Even on the few occasions where a spear found its way in between an opening and hit his flesh, it would simply glance off. It was as if the earth itself had blessed him. At least that was how he felt. Maybe he bled, maybe he didn't. He did not feel any of these wounds, and he dealt many a bane wound to his foe that day. He moved with grace, with fury and power, hammering his way through enemy ranks. And even though his lord lost the fight that day, he did not lose his battle. His day ended with him standing with more dead about him than could be counted, and an enemy earl granting him an arm ring as a thank you for having been allowed to see his might on the battlefield. And he knew that his name would live on amongst enemies after that day. After he left the battlefield that day, he walked through the hills towards home, and at some point stopped and dug a hole amongst the roots of the trees, and there he buried that same arm ring. He did not want to be honored by an enemy in such a way. The tails would do just fine. And he felt that this gift should be given back to the earth and stone that had so protected him in so many battles. That's the story of today. And without many complications, I shall simply ask you to tune in tomorrow for the next chapter. And don't forget to like, comment, share. Go to northernblack.shop. Bless yourself with a bit of loot. It is Christmas after all. And that is it. Good night and fuck off. Today's rune is Jera. Usual rules apply. Don't forget, like it, comment, share it, all those stuff. That would be very appreciated. Now, in a close forest, life is sparse, and the struggle is harsh for all life there. And every once in a while, odd miracle happens. A jaybird will pick up an acorn and flee the forest to hide it somewhere away from all the other animals. It flies its weird bouncing flight across a little field of green grasses that has been used for horses towards a hill that stands alone in the middle of the field. That hill was probably once a grave for a mighty warrior in an age long past. Here it leaves its treasure buried a little bit in the ground for later. And it intends to go back with more, to build a little stock, like a squirrel. The hill is surrounded by brambles, which is a very practical thing for this little acorn. Bird flies off and quickly forgets what it was doing, because jaybirds are not the smartest. But the acorn lies on the ground. As the year turns, it stirs and awakens. A little life inside of it starts to coalesce like galaxies. And come springtime, the acorn cracks open, and a little green tendril starts moving upwards, while another one, slightly whiter, starts moving downwards, spreading out many more tendrils, like a kraken, and then, like many kraken, thousands of tendrils reaching out, touching the ground, gaining nutrients, growing stronger. And as this happens below, above, all of a sudden, the earth is pushed aside as the sun warms it, and out comes a little green tendril, and before long it unfolds into a leaf, and it keeps growing up and up. Oaks are not the fastest at growing, but they are important to this world, and this life is for them a struggle the whole way through. Competition from faster growing plants is harsh, but in the beginning of their life they grow remarkably fast, and by the end of the warm, beautiful summer, it has grown to a decent height, a couple of feet almost. The wind has buffeted it in the summertime, giving it strength, giving it force of will. And by the time autumn comes around and starts to drop its colour, it is ready for this process. Although for a tree it would probably fear dying for the first time, because winter is to a tree almost death, at least for the leafed ones. Autumn happens quickly. Rain is harsh, and the first frost hits the ground before its leaves are completely gone. In winter time it stands there desolate alone, as thoughtless as any plant could ever be. But it has survived a year, and comes springtime. Oh, the tree dreams of springtime. And if a tree could fear, it would fear the deer. Even though they would find it to be bitter, a young oak is still succulent enough for a deer that's winter grazing to be interested. But it is left alone. The alliance with the brambles keeps it safe. And spring comes around again. The roots in the ground starts moving faster this time. They're already ready. They're already there to tap into water and nutrients. And the sun graces the branches, and soon the little leaves as they start spreading out, and the tree grows upwards and outwards. New little branches starts to shoot in different directions, and one day these branches will be mighty, mighty thick boughs connected to the trunk many years from now. The summer comes, the leaves are fully extended and catching as much sunlight as possible as the tree grows larger. And autumn comes, and with grief the tree loses its leaves, many now, already many. Its odd, lobed leaves, so strange but so unique for the beautiful oak. Winter comes, the grief again, the coldness, the snow, this year biting snow and cold. And the tree observes the world go by. It sees a pack of wolves hide in the hollow around it, underneath the hill, near the brambles, waiting to hunt for the deer and rabbits that are trying to survive the winter themselves. Spring comes, again, new strength, summer, autumn, winter, spring, summer, autumn, winter, spring, summer, autumn, winter, and many, many years go by. One year, the tree sees humans as they start to build. They drag timber from the nearby forest from whence it once came, from where its parent tree actually still stands. And they start building at the base of the hill. The building stands, and summer's passed, autumn and winter happens. And a couple of these seasons go by while the family lives there, until one day carelessness causes a fire to spread from the hearth, and the little farmstead is gone again. The remains will be there for many years. Part of it was built of sturdy oak from the forest, but it will be gone in the blink of an eye to this tree. And so life continues. It sees war, battles in the fields. It sees animals come and die at its base. It survives all hardship. It even gets struck by lightning, giving it a massive scar and splitting it a little bit, but it grows and grows and grows. Until this day, where you would be able to see it, spread, bowed, some of the branches reaching so far down that they touch the earth to support it, for that is the way of old oaks. It is massive and strong and beautiful. It stands there on the hill, majestic, sturdy and everlasting, having experienced the turning of the year, hundreds of years, time immemorial to us humans. It would have seen the Vikings come and go, the farmers, the lords, the warriors. It would have seen dark ages of mankind, of medieval times. It survived the plagues as if it was nothing. It had a man hung in its boughs and branches for being a thief, and his remains buried at its roots, and all it did was to take nutrients from the corpse. Nature is relentless, and the turning of the wheel never ending. That was today's story. Hope you enjoyed it. Good evening, fellow humans out there. First of all, I apologise for any background noise. Second of all, I apologise for looking like a dishevelled, weird, hungover Santa Claus. I'm not hungover. I am, in fact, just a bit under the weather and tired. But let's not digress, shall we? Today's rune, Hagal, or Hagalaz, hail. Now don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, share, all these things. They matter, they help us, and they fuel the fire under my proverbial butt, so that I may make more of these stories. And perhaps after this Christmas calendar I shall continue telling you tales. Who knows? Or even write some down and publish a book one day. You know, more hands and heads. Anyways, Hagalaz. Oakmund had been struggling through the sleet and the layer of ice in front of him. Him and his compatriots, the raiding party, had had a struggle getting the ship to soar ashore on the craggy cliffs. It had been a fight to hold on to any rope. It had been a fight to get a man ashore. It had been a fight to tie in the ship so it would not be driven away in the storm, as it were. The weather was anything but fortunate, and Oakmund felt that they should have given up on this endeavor when the clouds gathered and things turned bad. But the captain had insisted. They had continued on. The plan was too perfect, and it was the right night for it. They were feasting in this bukt, in this little village, in the end of the fjord, and he knew they would be drunk, and probably well asleep, many of them by now, so it would be an easy prey. Thormod had many times disagreed with his captain. His captain liked foul play, easy targets. I mean, who doesn't like an easy target? But attacking and stealing from people who are celebrating life and birth of an heir and all of that, taking all of their gold and goods and food and possibly women and dragging them back along these slippery, shitty paths all the way to the ship and then trying to sail home seemed like folly. But Thormod had agreed. In the end, the promise of gold was high, and the price, he needed that money to make it. He wanted to buy his own ship one day. So, along the paths they had staggered, slipping, sliding, trying to not make a clinking sound with their armors and shields and swords. And they'd made it. Not one man had been lost to the sea. Not one man had gotten hurt. And they had snuck up on the village in the bukt. And they'd snuck in, and they had taken what they wanted. By torchlight, they had searched through everything first until they had been spotted by guardsmen who were still sober, and then they had fought. A few had died. The villagers had been pressed back, hung over and useless and unarmed. They had been pushed into a corner of this little town, and they had had free rein, the captain and his men, to take what they wanted. And so they did. Thormod remembered grabbing a pouch that was offered to him by an old man. An old, frail man held it out and was like, "Here, take my gold. I don't need it. Just leave us alone. Leave my family alone. It will do you better," it said, not seeming that afraid. Then Thormod had taken it, shoved it inside of his tunic. And as they had retreated, they had heard shouts in the village. They knew that they were organizing a little hunt to try and get on the backs of these raiders and invaders, and the captain knew it very well. He had hasted it to the front and led the way back along the cliffs, steep and slippery. They all found it remarkable that the villagers had never thought this entryway to their little place would be a convenient raiding path, but you cannot protect yourself against everything. And the hole underneath the wall had been conveniently dug for them by an insider. So, as they were running and slipping and sliding, Thormod thought that he heard shouting, sometimes screaming, from the back, but he did not hesitate. He kept running. If anyone fell behind, it was their problem. More gold for him, he thought. The fools. As he ran, he saw up ahead that the line had stopped. Someone carrying a big sack was in front of him, and he was about to shout when he slipped and jammed his knee hard down on the edge of a jagged rock. He immediately felt the warm blood running down his shin, and he could tell that something had been severed between kneecap and bone. He tried to get up, but it hurt. The pain was excruciating. He had to limp his way. At first, another man supported him. He could not see who. The hail and the rain and the sleet was getting colder and harder by the minute. It was only because they had just come this way that he even knew where they were going. He bled, and he was in pain, and his comrade had left him to run ahead to make it to the boat first. And then he heard a scream, and he saw what looked like a giant tentacle of a kraken reach out of the sea and grab the men and tear them into the water in front of him. He knew it was a wave, but he feared the tentacles. He feared the arms of the kraken like anyone would. These waves, this sea, this weather. He was now all about making it fast back to the ship. And he did. Him and a few others, determined. They cut the ropes and they sailed out. And eventually they made it home after many years of hardship and determination and probably luck. They were sent to far shores, they served as slaves. But all of it Thormod overcame, pushing his way through this torment, this oppression, this terrible, terrible curse that seemed to have befallen him. And one day, on his own ship, sailing back, on a windy, sleety day, he could see his hometown, and maybe he would see his wife and children again. And if he did, he would probably have to face a new husband in single combat. But who cared? Thormod had grown strong from the opposition, from the fights, from the darkness of the world. Be damned with a little weather. Be damned with anyone in his way now. He had been hardened in a cold fire. That was the story of today. Simple. I do recommend that you go to northernbat.shop as always. Do a bit of shopping, get yourself some goods. That is it for today. Have a good night and stay tuned. Come back tomorrow. Watch the rest of the ones I've posted, by the way, and fuck off. Good evening. Today's rune is Nauthiz. Need. Speaking of need, I need you to like the video and comment and share it. Social, economic, currencies and all that. It would be very appreciated. Now, to the story. We had packed well. Lots of food and lots of goods. Goods to be traded in the far south. Pelts, leather, walrus tusks and the like. And antler bone and similar stuff. Good things to trade with anyone down there, far from home. And as we set out on this beautiful late spring, early summer day, the weather was fabulous, and we were all full of hope and all full of expectations. We set out in the afternoon, and we anchored not far from shore in the evening. And that was our first day of travel. Easy, bit of rowing, mainly sailing. On our second day, we crossed the Kattegat and passed by the tip of the land of the Danes before we set south down the coast, where we would sail along the coast of many of the tribes and pass between the Frisian land and the area known as Kent. It would be a long journey before we even got there, and somewhere along the day we saw sails, several of them ahead, and our captain, being a wise man, sent us out further to sea. He set every man to the oar and made sure that the sail caught good wind. See, we did not want to risk anything. While we were armed, we were not well armed. We did not have many warriors aboard, and we were a small but broad vessel. We carried goods, traded. We were not meant for war. So we ran to sea and intended to sail around this obstacle. Our captain didn't think much of the fact that these ships might be there for another reason, might be huddled together quite visibly for another reason. And the reason that he had not seen was that far out on the horizon were deep clouds with a purple tint. None of us saw it. We were heads down, rowing hard. And by evening fall, we thought we were safe from raiders and Vikings, but we were far from safe from the storm. We did not realize how bad it was, because darkness had come upon the sea. And somewhere midst a nightfall, we were awoken by being tossed about a bit. Not too bad, until all of a sudden, not too bad became quite bad, and we started dropping between the waves, slamming down the tip of the ship, hitting hard. Our steersman was strong and good at what he did, and he was trying to keep us up against the waves and make sure we were not tilted, keel up. We ended up realizing that it was time to take the sails down, and we did so, and we all thought we'd be okay. Then glimmers of light started happening. Flashes, thunder. Powerful weapon of Thor was flashing, at first far away, but it came closer, and in it we could see the clouds above us, and we could see how the sea was alive, aboil with waves, choppy here and wavy, and all of it turning bad very, very fast. Before long, we were high atop a wave and then fast down it, in that way that you drop and it feels like the earth itself has given up and dropped its grip on you, and you're falling freely until the boat hits the bottom of the wave and you hit the bottom of the deck, and you hit the benches, and you hit anything in your way. Men against men in the bilges, salt water everywhere, fish in the boat, people trying to grip and hold on to each other, and vomit everywhere as well, plus some blood from whom I do not know. But the storm was here, and it was hard, and it would last the full night. And just as the night was ending and we could see a glimmer of hope, of light far out in the horizon, lightning struck one last time at night, and it hit us. It took our mast perfectly. It crushed it, and we were without hope anymore. We had lost oars, we had lost our spare sail, we had lost most of our barrels of food, we had lost much of what we had brought to trade, and we would, no matter what, hobble our way back home in shame. Finally the waves stopped and we got sleep. We were all exhausted and all wrecked, bruised and battered, missing teeth and bleeding, many of us. And when we awoke in the morning, or rather what we thought was morning but was most likely midday, all the storm and wind had abated, and we just lay there adrift, far from everything, not enough oars to get us any place, not that we knew where to sail to. All we could hope was that the currents and the waves would carry us towards shore, towards hope. But there was no hope. We had no water left. Our barrels had been swept to sea, and the storm. This was surely the punishment of the gods. Many of our shipmates had gone down. They had been cast into the water to be taken by rune. Drowning, death by drowning, terrifying. And so we drifted, and so we waited, hungry and thirsty for days and nights and days, until finally we saw hope. Sails. We were all thin and wrecked, cut and bruised, and cracked lips, and everything. Nothing was good, everything was bad. But we saw hope, we saw sails. The sails turned out to be Frisian pirates, out to take slaves. And thus began my first day as a slave. And so ends the story for today. Don't forget, comment, share, like, and all of that. And to all of you, a very good night.